Good morning, everyone. We have a good audience again. Thanks for coming in for this final session of the 92nd Halibut Commission meeting. We'll have a few things to say at the end of it, but I think for right now we'll just start the meeting with the executive director and his staff going through the motions that we need to make to get this continue the fishery.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning to everyone. The first item on your agenda is approval of catch limits for 2016. First area is Area 2A. This is a combined sport and commercial allocation, including the 2A tribal fisheries. And again, for all of these, there is a listing of what's in the blue line, but recalling that is only one portion of the advice that the staff provides to you. The full advice is in the decision table itself. Having said that, the blue line number for Area 2A is 1.02 million pounds. The conference board recommended 1.33 million pounds, and the processors advisory group recommended 1.42 million pounds.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for this?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the harvest limit in Area 2A be 1,140,000 pounds.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I would second that.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Is there a discussion or comment?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, we heard a report or three reports from the three states on how they manage this resource. It was extremely impressive of all the dock sampling and detail that they go to in terms of managing this resource. On page 82 of the Blue Book, there's weight per unit of effort information, which happens to be up 36% in this area for this last year. On page 86, the numbers per unit of effort are up 44%. There's an overall increase in the 10-hour directed halibut fishery of 4% in their CPUE, and almost all the fisheries we've heard of are closing earlier because of the abundance of fish. The 1.14 comes from page 180, that if the SPR was held constant, this area would be 1.14, so that's where I got the number from. It's not quite what the PAG and the conference board asked for, but that's what I think is reasonable.
Thank you. Further discussion? We've moved and seconded to set 2A at 1.14 million pounds. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When the news release comes out on this, the individual allocations as a result of catch sharing plans, if you approve that, will be presented along with our news release. The next area is Area 2B, waters off of Canada. Blue line number for this is 5.22 million pounds. The conference board recommended 7.35 million pounds, and the processors advisory group also recommended 7.35 million pounds.
Thank you. Is there a motion for this quota?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the 2016 catch limit for Area 2B be 7,300,000 pounds.
Mr. Chairman, I would second that.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Is there a discussion or comment?
Yes, I'd like to point out that in consideration of this, the unadjusted survey WPUE has been increasing or stable in 2B for the past 10 plus years, Blue Book page 82, and when adjusted for survey timing and hook competition to enable a more representative view of abundance, the Area 2B survey's WPUE value has been increasing or steady for the last 10 years. The 2015 adjusted value is 52% higher than the adjusted WPUE in 2006 and 13% above the value in 2014. Blue Book page 167 provides the graph. 2B's survey NPUE has also been increasing or stable over the last 10 years. I refer you to Blue Book page 86. The commercial fishery WPUE has also been increasing since 2008 and is now approaching the highest values on record. These trends have occurred during a period when Canada's total removals have ranged from 7.71 million pounds to 15 million pounds. And we refer you to Blue Book, page 72. The catch limit Canada is seeking will still result in a total mortality for 2B at the low end of this range. Canada also notes that the stock assessment estimates a 5% increase coastwide. In summary, there's no evidence that recent harvest levels have or will result in overharvest. Indices of abundance remain stable, size at age is stable, and a range of age classes are being caught in the fishery.
Thank you. Any other comments? I see none. Moved and seconded to set the 2B quota at 7.30 million pounds. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next area is Area 2C, Southeast Alaska. Number identified in the blue line was 4.62 million pounds. Conference Board recommends 5.64 million pounds, and the Processors Advisory Group recommends 6.87 million pounds.
Thank you. Is there a motion for 2C?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the Commission adopt a combined 2C catch limit for the charter and commercial sectors of 4.95 million pounds.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
It's moved and seconded. Is there a discussion or comment?
Area 2C has experienced another increase in survey weight per unit effort of 12% in 032 fish in 2015. The commercial weight per unit effort increased by 18% in 2015 and has increased steadily for numerous years, showing positive signs of recovery. 4.95 million pounds represents an increase in the FCEY of 6.1% over 2015, a harvest rate of roughly 22.6%, and a 300,000 pound increase over the 2015 harvest levels. And also like to add that 2C has the highest survey weight per unit effort in the state.
Thank you. Additional comments? So it's moved and seconded to set the 2C quota at 4.95 million pounds. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Commissioner Kaufman, for reminding me this is a combined catch limit. I'll get it straight one of these years. Next area is Area 3A, Central Gulf of Alaska. Again, the numbers here represent a combined commercial and recreational charter catch limit. Blue line identification was 9.27 million pounds. Conference Board recommends 10.1 million pounds, as did the Processors Advisory Group.
Thank you. Is there a motion for 2C?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the harvest limit in 3A,
3A.
yeah, 3A, be 9.6 million.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded to set the quota at 9.6. Is there a comment or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I noticed that the Conference Board and PAG moved last year's harvest limits. Unfortunately, in the surveys, they continue to be down. They haven't jumped up, but they're not appreciably down. But it'd be nice to have an up. The good news in that area is that the commercial numbers on page 122 are up in 3A by 11%, but it's the first up in about 12 years. So I think a down is warranted, and this is about half down, Mr. Chairman. And I think we'll see where the resource goes next year, and if it needs further care, we'll take that action then.
Thank you. Further comments? Moved and seconded to set 3A at 9.6 million pounds. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next area is Area 3B, which is the Western Gulf of Alaska, identified at the blue line at 2.71 million pounds, 3 million pounds from the Conference Board recommendation, and 2.71 million pounds from the Processors Advisory Group.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for 3B?
Mr. Chairman, I have a motion. I move the Commission adopt a 3B catch limit of 2.71 million pounds.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there comment or discussion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 2.71 million pounds is equivalent to the 2016 blue line. Although the survey weight per unit effort increased by 21% and the commercial weight per unit effort increased by 47% in 2015, This remains an area of concern for the Commission. 3B is showing signs of stabilization, but abundance is still at very low levels, and an adjusted set line weight per unit effort of 77.3 pounds per skate is down from over 400 pounds per skate in the late 1990s. The commercial weight per unit effort in this area was 146 pounds per skate in 2015, the highest level in 5 years, but significantly lower than the 293 pounds per skate 10 years ago and 548 pounds per skate 15 years ago. We are optimistic that 3B has hit bottom and is showing signs of stabilization, and we're hopeful that maintaining a harvest rate of roughly 16.1% in 2016 is the right decision for this area.
Thank you. Is there further comment? It's moved and seconded to set the 3B quota at 2.71 million pounds. Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next area is Area 4A, identified at the blue line at 1.3 million pounds, and from the Processors Advisory Group and the Conference Board, each recommended 1.39 million pounds.
Thank you. Do we have a motion for 4A?
Mr. Chair, I would move that the harvest limit in 4A be 1.39 million pounds.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded to set 4A at 1.39 million pounds. Is there a comment or discussion?
Mr. Chair, I note that this is 90,000 pounds over the blue line. This 2 years ago, when we were faced with a 42% down in this area, and we took 100% of that. And then the following year, which was the last year, the survey numbers jumped up almost 60+%. And so this area has a lot of variability. It seems to be settling out. So I think that staying at last year's harvest limit and seeing what it does next year is worth doing.
Thank you. Additional comment? It's moved and seconded to set the 4A quota at 1.39 million pounds. In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next area is Area 4B, the Western Aleutians. Blue line number was 0.92 million pounds. Conference Board recommends 1.3 million pounds, and the Processors Advisory Group recommends 1.16 million pounds.
Thank you. Is there a motion for 4B?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the Commission adopt a 4B catch limit of 1.14 million pounds.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
Thank you. Moved and seconded to set 4B at 1.14. Is there comment or discussion?
Area 4B has shown strong signs of stabilization over the past 5 years in survey weight per unit effort and commercial weight per unit effort. Survey weight per unit effort is up 13% from 50 pounds per skate in 2014 to 56 pounds per skate in 2015. And commercial weight per unit effort was up 7% from 2015 from 146 pounds per skate to 155 pounds per skate. The IPHC expanded survey is scheduled for 2017. This survey should add to our knowledge and understanding of Area 4B, and again, we are hopeful that the halibut stocks in this area will continue to rebuild. The 1.14 million pound number represents 230,000 pounds more than the blue line, but roughly equivalent to the harvest levels in 2014 and 15. And although slightly less than recommended by Conference Board and PEG, we think this is a good number for 4B.
Thank you. Additional comment? It's moved and seconded to set 4B quota at 1.14 million pounds. In favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next area is Area 4C, D, and E, and as a reminder that you adopt a catch limit for this entire area, the Commission regards 4C, D, and E as an entire area. What might show on the screen is the results of the catch sharing plan from the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council, should you choose to adopt that, but that will be populated when the quota is decided for this area. The blue line identification was 1.64 million pounds. The Conference Board and the Processors Advisory Group also recommend 1.64 million pounds.
Thank you. Is there a motion for 4CDE?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that the harvest limit in 4C, D, and E be 1.66 million pounds.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
Moved and seconded to set 4CDE at 1.66. Is there comment or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I added 20,000 pounds to this number that over the blue line and what the conference board and PAG recommended. It came in, some information came in late. In U.S. regulation, there's a specific trigger number that allows for 4E to get a special allocation out of this area. And that number is 1,657,600 pounds. So I rounded that number up. It comes to 1.66, which is 20,000 pounds over the blue line. I think it's an important socioeconomic situation for the people in 4E that we provide that extra 20,000 pounds. So that's what I've done.
Thank you. Additional comment? It's moved and seconded to set 4CDE quota at 1.66 million pounds. In favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? It passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next order of business is commercial fishing period recommendations. And these are dealt in a series of areas. The first one is Area 2A, non-treaty fisheries. This has traditionally been the only derby fisheries left that the Commission has. The staff are recommending a series of openings at 2-week intervals beginning on the 22nd of June of 10-hour openings as listed on the screen. The Processors Advisory Group made the same recommendation, the conference board made the same recommendation. There was no comment from the Processors Advisory Group on this.
Thank you. Do we have a motion on 2A non-treaty seasons?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I would move in the area of 2A non-treaty, the IPHC staff opening dates that I think are up there. My angle's not too good, but it looks like they're up there. And then I would also add the conference board date of September 28th to those dates.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
The only comment I would further make is that these are 10-hour openings and probably won't go beyond 2 openings because it's such an intense fishery. Those are the only comments I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any further comment? It's moved to, the motion is to, I believe this is the conference board's recommendation, which is the same as the IPHC staff recommendation plus September 28th. So that's the motion to set those as the dates. In favor, aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next areas are the 2A treaty and incidental fisheries, but all of the remaining areas from 2B northwards through area 4A to E are dealt with. You can deal with these as a single motion. The IPHC staff recommendations is 15th of March through 7th of November. The conference board recommended 3rd of March through the 7th of November. The Processors Advisory Group recommends the 19th of March through the 31st of October.
Thank you. Can we have a motion for the opening and closing dates for the 2016 fishing season for all of the remaining areas?
Mr. Chair, I move that these dates be adopted as starting date of March 19th and a closure date of November 7th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there a comment?
I think we took the numbers from the 2 different boards and I'm trying to keep them both happy.
Thank you. It's moved and seconded. Set the dates for the 2A treaty and incidental fisheries, for 2B fisheries, and for all of the Alaska fisheries from March 19th to November 7th. In favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next issue, excuse me, is catch sharing plans. The first one is the Pacific Fishery Management Council catch sharing plan for Area 2A, and the IPHC staff, conference board, and Processors Advisory Group all recommend adoption of this.
Thank you. Is there a motion for this?
Mr. Chairman, I would move acceptance of the Pacific Fishery Management Council catch sharing plans for Area 2A.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that motion.
Thank Moved and seconded to accept PFMSC's catch sharing plan for 2A. Is there a comment or discussion? I see no comment. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You'll see on the screen the individual allocations have been populated based on the catch limit that you adopted. The next area is to adopt the North Pacific Fishery Management Council catch sharing plan for areas 4C, D, and E. It's recommended by the staff, the conference board, and the processors advisory group.
Thank you. Is there a motion for this area?
Mr. Chairman, I would move the adoption of the North Pacific Fishery Management Council's 4C, D, and E catch sharing plan as listed up on the screen.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
I don't have any comment.
Thank you. Moved and seconded to accept the North Pacific Council's catch sharing plan for 4C, D, and E. In favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next area is to accept the combined Area 2B commercial and sport catch limit. It's recommended by the staff. No comment from the conference board and recommended by the processors advisory group.
Thank you. Is there a motion for this?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the combined 2B commercial sport catch limit.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
No discussion.
Moved and seconded to accept the combined 2B commercial sports catch limit is shown. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next area is to accept the North Pacific Fishery Management Council's proposed catch sharing plan for Area 2C. It's endorsed by all your advisory bodies and the staff.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the commission adopt the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council Halibut catch sharing plan for Area 2C.
Do I have a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Is there comment? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is to accept the North Pacific Fishery Management Council catch sharing plan for Area 3A for commercial catch and charter fisheries. It's recommended by both your advisory bodies and the staff.
Thank you. Is there a motion for this?
Mr. Chairman, I move the commission adopt the North Pacific Fishery Management Council Halibut catch sharing plan for Area 3A.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
It's moved and seconded to accept the North Pacific Fishery Management Council's Area 3A catch sharing plan. Is there discussion? In favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask Heather Gilroy to go through the agency and council proposals, please.
Mr. Chair, at the request of the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council, they request that you adopt regulations for the Area 2C charter fishery, and it is a one fish daily bag limit, a reverse slot limit where the fish needs to be 42 inches, equal to 42 inches and less, or 80 inches and greater, and that was their request at the blue line.
Thank you. Is there a discussion or a motion relative to this?
Mr. Chairman, I move the commission adopt the following 2C charter halibut management measures. A one fish daily bag limit, a reverse slot limit of U43 to 080 or under 43 inches to over 80 inches. In other words, it must be less than or equal to 43 inches or greater than 80 inches.
Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
Thank you. Is there a discussion?
Mr. Chair, the difference here in the reverse slot limit would be a result of the increase of 300,000 pounds to the Area 2C catch limit. In addition, I would like to add that these management measures are projected to result in a charter harvest limit of 877,000 pounds, which is under the charter sector allocation of 906,000 pounds.
Thank you. Further discussion or comment? It's been moved and seconded to accept, to identify the reverse slot limit of 43 to 80. In favor, aye.
Aye.
I'm sorry. 43. So just to clarify, the initial proposal through the council was 42, but the council had expected the 2C quota to be set at the blue line. But since the 2C quota is set somewhat above the blue line, it leaves room for a little more fish for the charter fleet. So that allows the lower limit to be 43. So that's a minor change from the screen. So just to confirm, all in favor of that, now that it's been clarified, please aye.
Aye.
And opposed? That passes unanimously.
The next recommendation is from the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council for the Area 3A charter fishery. And this is a 2 fish daily bag limit where one fish has a maximum size of 28 inches, that each vessel is limited to 1 trip per calendar day, that each charter permitted is limited to 1 trip per vessel per calendar day, that there is no halibut retention on Wednesdays for the sports season, and there's an annual limit of 4 fish. In addition, with the annual limit, they've also recommended that there be a record of the fish on the ADF and G sport license, and if they get a duplicate license, they need to also put that information on the other license.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the commission adopt 3A charter halibut management measures as recommended by the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chairman, I second the motion.
Thank you. It's moved in. Is there discussion?
Mr. Chair, for Area 3A, these management measures are projected to result in a charter harvest of 1.799 million pounds, which is under the charter sector allocation of 1.814 million pounds.
Thank you. Further comment? So it's moved and seconded to adopt this collection of management measures for the 3A charter fishery. They're on the screen. We have them in front of us. All in favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Passes unanimously.
There's a request from the conference board that the commission requests that the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council in the future provide management measures for catch limits above and below the blue line.
Thank you. So this suggests that management measures to be imposed on the charter fisheries to keep them at their limits. Should I anticipate blue line changes between the interim meeting and the final meeting that may go up or down? Is there any comment from the commissioners on this? I see no comment, so I would suggest that this would be a agenda item to be covered in discussions and communications between the council and the commission when we have those opportunities over the next year. So if the commissioners accept that, we will dispose of that way. Thank you. So that's finished.
This is just to point out that at the last year's annual meeting, you agreed to remove a regulation. We left it in place because the regulation wasn't in NIMS regs for 2015, but we would request that we remove the regulation that if a charter vessel in 2C or 3A, if there's a size limit, then the carcass needs to be retained. And so this would be removing it from the IPHC regs because it is in NIMS regs.
Thank you. So I believe we agreed to this last year as a commission. So is there any further commission comment this year on that? I think we have not changed our mind, so we are in agreement.
The next recommendation is from the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council to allow halibut retention in longline pot gear in the Gulf of Alaska as defined by the sablefish management areas. Your advisory bodies agreed with this. The conference board added that they would like to see a sunset date after 3 years.
Thank you. Is there a motion on this?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I move that the commission adopt longline pot gear as defined by the North Pacific Fishery Management Council as legal gear for the commercial halibut fishery in Alaska, where National Marine Fisheries Service regulations permit the use of this gear in the IFQ sablefish fishery. The IPHC would then review this after 3 years to determine the effects of it.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I second that.
Please just go ahead.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I put review instead of sunset. I think the commission has a unique authority to truncate any regulation at any time. So if this thing does become a problem, we can do that if it's needed. And so I think at this time, the motion with the word review is adequate. I am concerned, I'd like this to be reflected to the council as from the commission that without an MRA, which I was originally interested in putting in this motion, but there is not a database to draw on of what that MRA should be. So that would be a maximum retainable allowance, something similar to what's in the Area 2A in the bycatch of their sablefish fishery. Without something like that, there is the possibility of directed halibut fishery with pots. Someone could say, you know, I'm just a lousy sablefish fisherman. I caught 100% halibut. So I am concerned about that, and I think we need to have that monitored. If it becomes a problem, then we need to address that and possibly come up with a MRA based on the database that will be generated through the National Marine Fisheries Service Observer Program during 2016. Mr. Chairman, that concludes my comments.
Thank you. Additional comment? Moved and seconded to allow sablefish pot gear as a legal gear. I haven't read the whole motion, but I think we have it. Is there additional discussion? In favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That passes unanimously.
The next recommendation is from IPHC staff, and it's supported by the conference board and PEG, that if a halibut is caught with an external IPHC tag on it, that this fish be exempt from sport restrictions like size limits, bag limits, and could be kept out of the sport season. The conference board added that if a halibut is with an external tag, that it also be exempt from personal use restrictions, and the staff supports that.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Yes, I make the motion that the commission adopt the IPHC staff proposal around the retention of IPHC external tags be exempt from sport limit as Heather read off, whether it be bag, size, possession limits, and outside of sport fishing season. And I think the key words here are the IPHC external tags.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
It's moved and seconded. Is there discussion? In favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously passes.
This is a staff proposal and agreed with by PEG and the conference board that we add an allowable log in Alaska, which would be the National Marine Fisheries E-log.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the commission allow National Marine Fisheries Service E-log as an acceptable log for Alaska.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Moved and seconded to allow the E-log as an acceptable log in Alaska. Is there discussion or comment? In favor, aye.
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 Opposed? Unanimously passes.
We'll move on and go through the industry proposed regulations, and the first one is to have a minimum size limit for the commercial fishery of 30 inches, and the request was for 3A, 3B, and 4. It was not supported by PEG, and the conference board, I believe, supported it, but they had different areas.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Mr. Chairman, I would move that in areas 3B and all areas of Area 4, that the size limit be changed for 2016 to 30 inches.
Thank
If I
you.
get a
Is there a second?
second, I'll talk to that.
Yes, I'll second that.
Moved and seconded. Please discuss it.
Mr. Chairman, we've seen a lot of observer data that suggests a very high discard rate with the use of the 32-inch size limit, particularly in area 3B and 3A. This is an attempt to reduce our wastage in the directed halibut fishery. Some of these areas have 70% to 50 to 70% release rates when they're targeting for 32-inch fish in these areas in out west. It would add a considerable amount if we could know if some of these smaller fish would be male fish versus female fish. We need to start cropping some of those. I also see with this regulation that its enforcement would be with observer, VMS, and or an offload requirement. And that offload requirement would be that the hold would have to be empty before going into the area that you have the 30-inch size limit. So that concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Other comments?
Mr. Chairman, my instinct is to support this proposal. I think it's moving in the right direction. But in light of concerns expressed by IPHC staff around the difficulty of determining the effects of this proposed change, specifically a possible change in selectivity, as a result of low monitoring rates, I reluctantly would not support this proposal at this time.
Any further comments?
Mr. Chair, I would not support this motion at this time.
Thank you. So from the chair's point of view, if I can pass the gavel momentarily, I think that the commission needs to continue to reduce as much as possible the wastage of fish. When we discard these 30 to 32-inch fish, release them time after time at the level of 70% of the fish that are caught, I think this is not a conservative approach to the management of halibut. So I will call for a vote. All in favor, aye. Aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
The motion fails.
The next one is at the request of the Northwest Indian Fish Commission, and it's really a housekeeping change. They're recommending that we record the tribal ID number, not the vessel ID number, and that's actually what's happening. So we'd like the regulation to be changed for, we agree with this.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move the commission amend 2A fish ticket requirements to tribal ID number from vessel ID number.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Comment? Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That passes unanimously.
The next recommendation was from Alpha to change the logbook requirement to be defined to a landing, not to fishing. And we've discussed the staff enforcement, and the proposer has discussed this. And at this time, we all recommend that no action be taken.
Thank you. Any commissioner comment? No comment. We agree with you.
The next one is to adopt a maximum size limit of 60 inches for all halibut for all fisheries.
Thank you. Any commissioner comment? No comment from the commissioners.
There was one last proposal that came in late, and you've already done season dates, but the proposer was that the commercial opening be after April. For the sport fishery, they recommended a maximum size limit of 72 inches, as well as a requirement for barbless hooks.
Thank you. Is there any commissioner comment? The commissioner takes no action on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are a number of other recommendations that came from your advisory bodies. The first one concerns, excuse me, discard mortality rates. The conference board recommends the commissioners direct staff to re-examine the appropriateness of the 16% discard mortality rate currently assigned to halibut released in the U.S. and Canadian directed halibut fisheries.
Thank you. Is there a commission motion? So the sense of the commission is that this is a good activity to undertake. So will the staff please follow those instructions as they came from the various advisory boards? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse me. The next motion came from the conference board. The conference board's request that the IPHC consider the feasibility of including in the annual survey additional sites around Nunivak Island used in the standard survey grid pattern.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we direct the staff to examine all other information that might lead to giving us a better handle on the abundance of halibut in and around Nunivak Island.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure what that information will reveal. I know that there was a discussion to examine logbooks and develop a logbook program for the smaller boats. Not sure that they legally are required to provide a logbook. So having the staff interact with the community up there to develop a logbook, and this would be very unique. It'd be the first time we have a logbook, probably with snap-on gear. I think that's real important to get a look-see at. So that would be my direction, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I hate to admit this, but I forgot whether we have a second for this motion or not. Did I already do that? Is there a second?
I'll second that.
In the event, we at least have 1 second, so thanks. Is there further discussion or comment? Those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimously passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next recommendation also comes from the conference board. The conference board recommends that the commissioners prioritize the task of reviewing and updating the harvest policy and harvest control rule. The conference board also asks the commissioners direct staff to work with a scientific review board to develop harvest policy control rule options to be reviewed and evaluated by the Management Strategy Advisory Board. This is a priority of the U.S. and Canadian stakeholders who request the assignment of sufficient staff and resources to accomplish this in a timely manner.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have a motion regarding this particular proposal from the conference board. I would observe that in 2013, the Commission approved the formation of the Management Strategy Advisory Board to oversee a management strategy evaluation process. This work is been ongoing for a couple of years now. The Commission further provides direction to the IPHC staff to continue their work with the MSAB to evaluate management procedures for Pacific halibut fishery and achieving a set of measurable objectives. This work will be a priority deliverable for the MSAB. The Commission further directs that this work be undertaken in conjunction with the Science Review Board that will provide support to the MSAB as necessary.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? I think we had a lot of discussion of this at the various advisory board meetings and at the commission meetings. So all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The second item, the third item is also from the conference board. The conference board appreciates the work the staff has done to look at the impacts associated with halibut bycatch. They strongly recommend that the IPHC continue with this work and advocate for additional reductions in halibut bycatch in the Bering Sea, Aleutian Islands area, and the Gulf of Alaska. The Conference Board also supports the continued work of the North Pacific Fishery Management Council to develop abundance-based PSC management approaches that protect the reproductive value of the halibut stock and maintain and improve the traditional and directed fisheries in the U.S. and Canada. The priorities for this work are continued improvement in the management of all bycatch fisheries, increased observer coverage in the trawl fishery in the Gulf of Alaska, and an abundance-based PSC management cap in accordance with the National Standard 9 of the Magnuson-Stevens Act.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I do have a motion regarding this particular proposal. I would observe that, first off, that the Council and the Commission each have unique statute-based authorities and responsibilities. I would further observe that neither statute provides clear guidance on how to balance the objectives of groundfish and halibut management. Further, that because of the transboundary nature of the halibut resource, the Commission's responsibilities extend beyond that of a single nation and need to encompass the objectives of both countries in halibut management. The Commission supports development of a process to formalize communication with the North Pacific Fishery Management Council, as proposed in the Council's draft framework. We support the concept of a smaller protocol committee between our two bodies in conjunction with the regular joint meetings of the Commission and the Council. The smaller committee would provide a practical vehicle to develop concepts and background information for discussion by the joint meeting. That would include, but not necessarily exclusively, for example, development of methods to improve bycatch management and fisheries under control of each body, and discussion and considerations for how the Council and Commission could coordinate research into filling in gaps and understanding or areas of uncertainty in habit biology. I look forward to seeing this committee be set up between the two agencies and working together to further the goals and objectives of each body.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Further discussion or comment? From the chair, I think this is a splendid motion and a good idea, so thank you. All in favor, aye? Aye. Thank you. Unanimously passes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is for you to adopt the location and date of the 2016 interim meeting of the Commission.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the Commission designate Seattle, Washington as the place for the 2016 interim meeting on the dates of November 29 and 30, 2016.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
Comment?
Just briefly, Mr. Chair, I'd like to say that we typically do the interim meeting the first week of December, but there was conflict with the North Pacific Fisheries Management Council meeting, so we moved it to the last week in November.
Thank you. In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is the location and date of the 2017 annual meeting. At last year's meeting, you tentatively identified Victoria, British Columbia, and we supplied the dates of January 23rd to 27th of 2017.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the next AGM be Victoria, BC on January 23rd to 27th.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comment? I'll comment. I'm looking forward to going back to Victoria. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next item is the location and date of the 2018 annual meeting of the Commission.
Thank you. And this is a couple years off, so this is, of course, not locked in just yet, but it's our strong desire. And, well, I haven't heard the motion yet, so maybe, is there a motion?
Yeah, there is. So I move the next location be Hawaii. No. The 2018 annual meeting be Portland, Oregon.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I'll second that motion.
Is there any comment? In favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When it came up as Hawaii, and Heather and I both decided not to retire. The next item is to select the chair for the 2016-17 year.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the chair for the 2016-17 annual general meeting be Paul Ryall.
Is there a second?
Second that.
Moved and seconded that Paul Ryall should be chair for 2016-17. Is there a comment? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next item is to select the vice chair for 2016-17.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that we appoint Dr. Jim Balsiger as vice chair for the 2016-17 meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Mr. Chair, I second that motion.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. You notice I didn't allow any comment there, just in case.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we can go back to the item on identifying the tentative location of the annual meeting in 2018, we would also suggest that the dates be the 22nd to the 26th of January 2018.
Do you think that should require another motion?
It does not, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thanks. I think that was our intent. Thank you very much.
Excuse me. The last thing on our agenda here for this is that the staff asked your leave to make minor administrative regulation wording changes if we notice any inconsistencies as going through and generating the regulations.
Thank you. May I have a motion to that effect?
Mr. Chair, I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, aye. Aye. That passes unanimously.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We really appreciate that increase in our salaries. That's the remainder of our agenda for this.
Thank you. So we've worked our way through these proposals that seem fairly easy in most respects this morning. It was not easy for us. At this point, we haven't announced it, or it's not, I don't believe it's on the schedule, but we would like to provide an opportunity for any public comment should anyone care to make a statement. And this would be the time for that. Oh, I'm sorry. Would you hold just 1 second? We have one commissioner that wants to make a comment.
Mr. Chairman, would it be appropriate just to make a few comments regarding catch limits at this point?
It would. So I should start with whether there's commissioner comments that would be like to be made first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to applaud the conference board and processor advisory group for their really good and diligent work this week. And I'd also like to recognize the good work of the MSAB. With that, I just wanted to reflect a little bit on the total package that was, the total package of catch limits that was approved by the commission today. I think all of us have spent a lot of time this week looking at the risk tables and the decision tables and also at the blue line. And so I wanted to kind of draw us back to that and let us maybe give us a little reflection of where we landed on that. So this year's blue line, coast-wide blue line, was 26.7 million pounds, and the total package approved today was 29.89 million pounds. So basically about 12%, the catch limits coast-wide were basically 12% over the blue line, or 3.19 million pounds. To let you know where most of those increases came from, about 2.5 million pounds out of the 3.2 million pound increase above the blue line came from Area 2, an area that I think we have a lot of confidence in, an area that's responded very well to the cuts that we've all experienced over the last decade or so. And about 660,000 pounds of the increase above the blue line came from areas 3A and West, areas that we have, I think, more concern about. So bulk of the increases, or the bulk of the allocations above the blue line came from Area 2, and about 660,000 pounds of that came from Area 3A and West. With regard to 2016 approved catch limits compared to the 2015 approved catch limits, this year's allocation will be about 670,000 pounds more than last year, or about 2.2% above the catch limit set last year. So we're just slightly above what we did last year when we're looking at the FCEYs. But I think it's also important to note here that the fishing intensity, although we're above the blue line, the fishing intensity in 2016 is projected to be slightly less than it was in 2015. And that's a direct result of an improved stock assessment. And that fishing intensity is projected to be slightly less for when we take into account all levels of sources, or all sources and sizes of mortality. So just kind of wanted to draw us back to that blue line decision table that we put so much effort into looking at, and kind of compare it to the decisions that were made by the commission today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. Any other commissioner comments? I see none, so I saw Mr. Wing was going to be the first one to make a public comment.
As I look at the screen up there, I still marvel at 92 years of a body with this many stakeholders that come together to manage resource to the betterment of all. So as we go through being a stakeholder in this resource and the management of things, there's many stakeholders that are involved, as was discussed as I sat and listened to the discussion yesterday afternoon, which was going on, of how everybody fits into managing our fisheries. And it's not something, fisheries management is, and it's an evolving process, and it's worldwide. Sometimes we like to think of ourselves as being the leader or whatever, but you know, IBQs and that weren't developed by themselves. They were developed in different places around the world. And then as we look at that as a stakeholder, we think, well, gee, maybe that's a good idea. And we look at that and see how we can fit that into our regimes. And there's, in life, we have opportunities to be proactive, and sometimes we have to be reactive. And that's across a number of different industries. So when we're doing things, whether we're proactive or whatever, or being reactive, one of the stakeholders, which is a very important component of it, is our regulators. Because without them, they provide the tool which actually makes us be managing our resource to the greatest extent possible. And in my particular case, I'd like to speak from my experience as I've gone along and different things. And what we developed in our region was a reactive response to our regulator holding us accountable to a standard which was set for us. And that was what really created the movement from inertia, so to speak, and to move forward and to do things. And as we went along, we had a lot of fears. And believe you me, I was in groups and supported their view of resistance. But as I've come along and gone through it, and I watch all the other stakeholders which are involved with me in my region, we've all bought into it in a big way. And now we're all proactive. And the communication which we have back and forth amongst our different groups and our regulator is Well, it's actually quite remarkable because we all have different interests, but we all have a common goal. It doesn't matter if, in our particular case, whether we're a sablefish fisherman, a rockfish fisherman, a halibut fisherman, whatever it is, it's the sustainability of our resource. Now, as I sat and listened to things develop yesterday, and talked with some of the stakeholders around the room and different things, and then relate it to how we have developed our things. There are some similarities and different things like that. And what we have developed in our thing is, you know, we call it an integrated fisheries management strategy. It's a pretty complex document, but some of those things that are in there, I look at the comments from Bob and that, and then look at the comments of the, you know, different things in the costs and stuff. And I talk to these guys about some of the things that they're required to do. Well, when we look at our monitoring, we look at how we can lower our costs of that. And some of those rules that are in there actually lower the costs because part of our stakeholder process is our processors. And when we go to their docks, we talk with them, and on an individual basis, we're able to do things which lowers the cost to me on an individual basis of my monitoring as I'm offloading. And it's all inside that plan. And when I speak to the complexity of the plan is pretty complex, and I know I've at times said, you know, you should read it and sometimes maybe reread it. And even I continue to reread it to fully understand it and where it's coming from. Now, when you go out into the world, what we have works for us. It doesn't necessarily work for every particular region or jurisdiction or whatever. But it's worthwhile as we go through the management of our resources and things that we do look around at what is developed through the world and take that into context and how we do what we, you know, see as a positive thing going forward. Now, I believe that one of the brightest things that's been done here in this meeting this year is moving forward with the, well, I guess there's no real name yet for the new body, but the management strategy of the halibut resource. And I guess I look at my region, and gee, by the time I come out of everything, there's a whole pile more committees and acronyms and different things, but they're all to the benefit of the resource and the working that goes together to put it together. And what our objective is, and that's what we shouldn't look to do anything else, is just the management of the halibut resource. That's our place and how we fit into it, and that's what we're charged to do. We're not charged to come in and impose things on other sectors. That's the job of our regulator, to make us work together. And when we're proactive, we can ask our regulator to do those things for us. When we're reactive, he tells us we better do it. In some place in society, there's usually mechanisms in place to govern how we operate as a society. And somebody there is always looking, and a proactive response is a much more positive way of having an outcome for the stakeholders of the industry in a workable fashion. So the importance of that motion, which was made to move along with that committee, is over the 92 years, is probably one of the most important motions that was passed. And it shows leadership. Now, when we come back to the 93rd meeting and we get a report, hopefully I'm not hearing Jim say again how we kicked the can down the road and when are we going to do something. He's able to come back and report to us that we have more than just terms of reference, things like that from that committee, that it's actually proceeded along the way of being proactive about the management of our resource. And I would like to add too, that as we go through all of this, I know a few years ago I spoke to having 2 grandsons and the ability to take them fishing in the future. Today I got 4. And it's important to me that we manage this resource for all the young people which were here in Juneau this week trying to make a future for themselves.
Thank you very much for that. There was a lot of emotion in that, and I appreciate that. Any other comments? Ms. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This was a question. I was looking at my screen and I missed the vote on the minimum size limit. Was it 3-3?
It was 1-0. It failed. To pass a motion, it takes 2 votes from each party, and we did not get that.
That's what I thought I heard. Thank you.
Yes. More comments, please.
My name is Kit Durnall. I'm with Pacific Seafood and Seward, and I want to thank the commissioners for being good stewards of our resource and protecting our futures. As the Young Fisherman Summit participants are leaving the building, I think that we were good representation of what we can do or how the process should be done for our future, and those are the people that are leaving. I'm a past participant of the Young Fisherman Summit, and I just want to relay a little story, and I also want to talk to the more, shall we say, seasoned people in the room. So my story is, I found out recently that in 1997 was the first time that I'd ever touched a halibut, and I also found out that that was Bruce Lehman's first year as director. And I met him either that fall or the following spring. And at that time, I was just a processor in just a random plant in just a random town in an incredibly large state of Alaska. The next year, I had worked hard and moved up a position in more of a management position. And Mr. Lehman came again, as he has always done, and I appreciate, to talk to the fishermen, to visit the communities, to be accessible and present in the communities. And he came to me again, and I thank the last speaker for being emotional, but he came to me and he remembered my name. And as a young man in his 20s and having who I thought was the most important person in Alaska come to me and remember my name as a random processor in a random city in a large state, it made an impact. And over the next 19 years, 3 boats, 2 processing plants for me, at times I would run into Mr. Lehman, Dr. Lehman, and he would remember my name. I got married, he remembered my wife's name. And then he began to encourage me as I moved on to become a part of the PAG. That was nothing I knew about. I didn't know what the PAG was. I didn't know what this system was. And through the Young Fisherman Summit and through the encouragement of an important person that had a lot of experience, I'm standing at a microphone in front of very important people making very important decisions, and I'm part of that process. And so I just encourage the fishermen, the commissioners, the directors, the staff, those people that just walked out of the room, there's 75 young people in the industry that are trying to learn it and trying to move up and trying to better themselves. They weren't asked to come to this, they came to this on their own. So just seek those people out. I appreciate the staff and the legislators, and all the people that came to that reception last night made themselves accessible to those people. So I just wanted to relay that. Thank you, Bruce, for all of your years of service and for encouraging a random dock worker in a random plant in a large state to do something with himself. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much. There are a lot of messages there, and I'll just point out Dr. Lehman has a lot of remarkable characteristics, not just a memory. So any other comments from the floor? I see none, so I think it's time to move to the section of the meeting that kind of concludes things and wrap things up. Dr. Lehman, do you have some words for us?
I do, and I'll try not to blubber my way through this. I'd like to start talking about the people who've been closest to me, and that is primarily the staff, and I'd like to really recognize the woman sitting next to me, Heather. If you work for any kind of agency, and this has been my life's privilege to work for the Halibut Commission, one of the things you really value is good managers who are not only good managers, they're also honest critics of what you're doing, and they're also supportive. And Heather has been all of that. And so some of the kind words that people have said over the last couple of days about me, you can quadruple those when you deal with someone like Heather. She's a fabulous person. The commission is really going to miss her, believe me. The staff of the commission is an incredible group of people to deal with. They're unbelievably dedicated, and you as an industry are extremely well served by this staff. They've been absolutely incredible people to work with. I want to recognize the commissioners, and I've had 24 different commissioners in the time that I've been here. They've all been absolutely incredible people to work with. They commit to this at their own time, and they have treated this job very, very responsibly. They have listened to the staff. They've made their own decisions, and that is their prerogative and their right and their authority, but they have generally listened very seriously to what the staff has to say about things. I also want to thank all the agency people that we work with, our sister agencies in British Columbia and in Washington, Oregon, California, and in Alaska. There's a lot of people that are really dedicated to this resource and try their damnedest to make sure that it lasts. But foremost of all of this is you folks. The processors, the harvesters, I have enormous gratitude to all of you. Excuse me. You have helped me enormously learn how to do this job, to meld your needs with the science that the commission produces. It's a very important part of the process. But I also want to say to you that we can't work out of self-interest. We have to care for the fish. I think that when we act out of self-interest, we all lose. We have to take care of these fish. I think we need to recognize all the work that's in front of us. We still have a lot of work in front of us after 90 some odd years. We still have many things to try and achieve. I think we need to look at each other, listen to one another, and say, my friend, we need to roll up our sleeves and get on with this job. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let's see if the vice chairman has some comments at this moment.
Thanks very much, Jim. I do have a few comments. They're going to cover a few aspects, some relatively short. First off, this would be the, I think, 4th meeting for myself at the IPHC. And each year the conference board and PAG provide us commissioners sound advice, which we duly consider, and we don't always fully adopt it. And I would note that this year we didn't quite fully adopt everything, but many of the things that were brought forward. We're also served by other committees, the Management Strategy Evaluation Board and the Science Review Board, that provide us, I think, wise counsel on how to manage this resource that we collectively care about. I think that this next item around stock status, in particular this year, things from the modeling perspective and also from the set line survey and from fishermen's reports indicate that after 20 or so or decline of stock abundance, that things are recovering in many areas, some faster than others, and others that have been stable for longer periods of time. And Ian collectively noted this as cautiously optimistic and or something along those lines, that the stock is currently increasing gradually, and as models will do, they all have different projections on how well that may or may not be occurring. I think we're well served by the IPHC staff and getting all that information together to provide us their best views of what's occurring for all the way from California up into the Bering Sea. I had a few comments on catch limits, but Jeff more than adequately covered everything that I was going to say about catch limits for 2016. I think, and the only other thing that I would add is that we as a commission have collectively come up with catch limits across all regulatory areas that take a cautious approach when we see that things are increasing, and so we have increased in some areas more than others after considering all the advice. I think as well that be privileged to serve as chair for next year. In respect to Bruce moving on, I think for myself, I've known Bruce for, well, a few decades, worked with him at the Department of Fisheries and Oceans. He's served, I think, roughly 19 years out of 92 years, and someone does the math, that's a good part of the time of the Halibut Commission, over 20%. So Bruce has provided wise leadership and direction and served us well, and I wish Bruce all the best in his future endeavors, because I'm sure he'll have more, whether they be in fisheries or other aspects, whatever he chooses to do. So thanks very much, Bruce.
So I guess normally we only have the executive director, the vice chair, and the chair make these closing remarks, but this is a little different meeting. So I guess I would see if there's another commissioner that would care to say anything. And Bob.
So Bruce is leaving with the offices of the IPHC down in Seattle. Our association members on an annual trek would march over to Bruce's office in sort of a pre-meeting of the Halibut Commission. And oftentimes there was a lot of sparks. But I think we identified where the commas and dots and T's needed to be crossed, and in both directions. And it was a great learning experience. Our association were some of the first ones that petitioned the two governments for this, and Bruce has dedicated a great deal of service and done a tremendous amount of outreach. I think that touches everybody from Dutch Harbor to his trips to Kodiak and Seward and Homer, the Indian nations on the Washington coast, and in our meetings we had a few maybe 10 years ago in Portland. That was a huge meeting. It was 76, I think, organizations attended that for the conference board. And Bruce, we don't see everything that goes on to put on an event like this. And it's a credit to your staff that you've built, that these things that come off flawlessly, but there's got to be hundreds of hours and detail of all your crew. And we really appreciated your service and all the managerial stuff we never see. And we know it has to go on to pull these type of annual reports and meetings off. So thank you very much.
David.
I'd like to say a couple of things too. Thank you, Jim. I just kind of stumbled into the halibut industry about 30 years ago through a deckhand job, and it was a real lucky break for me. I used to attend the odd annual general meeting when it was in Canada, and I'd be sitting around the back of the conference board table wondering what was going on. I met Bruce and we talked about the fishery. He encouraged me to come and participate at the Research Advisory Board, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years ago. And that was on in the fall. So I can remember my first meeting very well. I felt like a very dim bulb in a very brightly lit room. The intellects that were there, the staff, Bruce, and the other fishermen were intimidating in their knowledge, but they were always very encouraging, and I kind of gained a bit of confidence as time went on. I always really enjoyed the potluck suppers that happened at Bruce's house after the RAB meetings, and also sampling his selection of red wine. We were both really keen on that, so we had a kind of a common bond there. And over the years, I did bring a few proposals to the Research Advisory Board, most of them probably fairly harebrained, but Bruce entertained them all seriously and even had a go at a couple of them, which was much appreciated. And so thanks very much, Bruce. You've had a long wheel watch and you kept us on a very straight and safe course. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. We were pleased to host this last meeting of Bruce's tenure in Juneau, my hometown here. And if you hang on for the afternoon, I think the sun's going to come out. I hope you enjoyed your time here. We were here a few years ago, and I don't know if many of you were here, but I think you'll probably notice we have like 4 new restaurants since the last time we're here. It's actually a pretty good town to hang out in now. It was always a good town, but there's different places to eat. This, as I mentioned earlier, these Friday morning sessions go, and you can see that they're relatively well orchestrated. So it's part of care that Bruce takes care of us. So it looks like it's easy, but these decisions are not easy to make. There were a lot of decisions that we spent a good deal of time individually and together thinking about. But all in all, I think it was a really good meeting. Since the first time in the last few years that things are relatively optimistic in the stock, the first time in the last few years that we've seen a fairly significant decrease in bycatch. The discussions focused quite a bit, both in the public and in our executive sessions, about the trade-offs we have to make between rebuilding the stock and capturing some revenue from the fishery now when things look a little bit better. And I'm happy where we ended up, so I think it was a good meeting. This is a long process thanks to the commissioners. Every one of these commissioners worked hard. Jeff Kaufman in his first year as a commissioner from the U.S. side had as much input as a first-year commissioner as anyone that I've been able to be with, so thanks to that. Thanks to the Canadian commissioners, we didn't have any fights or anything. It was a good meeting. Everyone's mentioned the PAG, the Conference Board, MSAB, the Science Advisory Board, the Research Advisory Board. We have other boards and committees that meet through the year too, scholarship committees. There's a lot of work that goes on. Thanks to the staff. They get everything lined up for us. We had a little bit less perhaps of night work for them, but they're willing and anxious to do what they can to serve the commission. So it's a great staff. Thanks to the audience out here. We had more than 135 people, I believe, the first day, and we had over 110 today. I didn't realize it was all these young fishermen that cleverly left before all these speeches, but it's a good crowd. We have agency staff that is often overlooked. We had agency staff here from California, Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, and Alaska. We had enforcement people from all of the states. We had the Coast Guard. So there's a lot of people that work on this, and I think we kind of overlook the background that has to happen, background work that has to happen to make this successful. So Bruce is one of my heroes in the fish industry, so I don't know how to add to what people have said. Other than that. So thanks very much to Bruce. Thanks to all of you. We'll call the meeting over.